to build deeper and deeper ties into the hearts and minds of nations that should be our allies. I'm glad you agree with what General Mattis said, and I hope we might move forward in budgets and in policy to express that as a bipartisan priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Kane. Senator Kane, do you recall which member of the committee asked that question of General Mattis?
I'm going to guess that was a senator from Mississippi.
You're absolutely correct. You got it right the first time. Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Driscoll, thanks for being here. Thanks for your service. I want to echo the thoughts about what's happened last night here in our home territory. It's devastating. It just so happens to coincide a little bit, and not that it has anything to do with this, but Fort Novosol in my state of Alabama, you know, we train all the vertical lift Army pilots, as you well know. And my first question for several weeks has been, I want to get your thoughts on what you think about the new curriculum for flight school that the Army has proposed. This affects all the pilots in the Army. And I want to get your commitment to continue an open dialogue about the Army's intent on how best to leverage existing resources. You know, we're cutting back on sorties. We're not putting the money in training like we used to, that we need to do. We're undertrained in some areas, so I'd like to get your thoughts on the curriculum and your thoughts about the future of vertical lift, especially with the new vertical lift that the Army's purchasing for the future fights that we might have.
Senator, to your comment on what occurred last night, I think we're all collectively going to have to take a deep dive and figure out what occurred there. Yeah. The early indicators from what I've seen on television, I have no other access to information, is that it might have been a training exercise gone wrong that had catastrophic outcomes. And so we're going to have to work together to make sure that never occurs again, or at least to mitigate the odds that it could ever occur again. And then specifically to future vertical flight, if you look at the contested airspace with our peer China and what we will have to do, our vertical assets are going to have to be able to get farther and faster with lower signature than they do today. That being said, if you look at FARA, the current the push for the Army, it is early in its development, it is incredibly expensive, and we are likely going to have to work with the Blackhawks and the Chinooks and the assets that we have today. And so if confirmed, I would want to get briefed on this and do a deep dive with the team to figure out how are we going to position ourselves and what training do we need for the next 1 day to 5 years until we can get to a better state.
Thank you. I want to discuss an issue that affects many of our installations, including mine in Huntsville Redstone Arsenal. The issue is military construction, MILCON, as we know it. We need to move fast, and the traditional military construction process is far too slow. Back at Redstone Arsenal, there are 2 warehouses as we speak are being constructed, one for military by the Corps Engineers and one by the FBI. These warehouses are roughly the same size regarding to the size, but the FBI has got a huge amount of bells and whistles, more than the military warehouse. The military warehouse is going to cost almost $56 million, and it's going to take 48 months, 4 years to build this. Where the FBI facility is going to cost $40 million and take only basically a year and a half. We got a problem, okay? How on earth does this make any sense? The Army is currently running a repair by replacement pilot program that is being tested at a couple of installations to demolish older barracks and replace them with new modern facilities. The key part of this program is that it is using operations and maintenance dollars versus traditional MILCON dollars. Are you familiar with this?
Senator, I had the opportunity to talk with you about it in your office. Yeah, and this is the type of thing that makes my blood boil on behalf of soldiers. The Army has a limited budget to begin with. We have to be good stewards of the American taxpayers' dollars. And when we are not, it is both the taxpayer and the soldier. And these soldiers are my friends. It is my friends that live in these barracks and raise their families there. And we need to stretch these dollars as far as we can.
Yeah. And the other small point I want to bring up, we talked about recruiting. I won't get into that. The new recruit in the Army makes $25,000 a year before taxes. We just gave a raise, but we can't expect to attract the best and the brightest young men and women in the militaries unless we do something else. We got to continue. I know we give them a lot of perks at the end of the day, but we have got to understand $25,000. I mean, most of them can make that in a 2 months' time in some kind of big tech or whatever. So just keep that in mind as you get into recruiting. We have got to start taking care of these young men and women if we're going to build the fighting force that we need. Thank you.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Senator Slotkin.
Sorry,